18 concrete blocks. That's what did it. 18 cold gray blocks lined up like tombstones across my lake access my ramp on a crisp September morning. I stood there, kayak propped on my shoulder, the sun barely up, wet cement gleaming like a dare. You ever wake up and know instantly today's gonna be war? That was me. I counted every block. And as the mist rolled in, carrying that sharp chemical tang of fresh concrete, I knew right away this wasn't random, this was personal. This was Claudia Piton. Now, most folks look at me and see just another retiree watering his garden. But what Claudia never bothered to figure out, I spent 35 years as a university librarian. If there's one thing I know better than anyone in this community, it's how to find the facts that matter and how to make them count. I could see the drag marks in the grass, saw how careful someone was, laying out these monsters, 40 centimeters on each side spaced, so you couldn't squeeze past if you tried. That's planning, that's money, that's intent. I started snapping photos, time-stamped every angle. The cement was still wet. The date on my phone said September 16th, 7:23 a.m. I even photographed where those blocks sat smack in the middle of my 12-foot wide legal easement. Not on common property, not the community's landmine. I'd memorized that legal description years ago. Most folks don't, but 35 years cataloging other people's details. You start paying attention to your own. Claudia had been hinting for months, floating talk of new HOA regulations, stricter standards, more control. Every time I'd smiled, nodded, figuring my old ramp was grandfathered in. I was wrong. Claudia didn't care about the past. She wanted to flex her power, make a test case out of me. So I did what I do best. I went home, sat at my desk, and dug out the paperwork. My study looks like a bunker for nerds, binders, cabinets, everything in order. I pulled out the green binder, found my 2011 lake access permit, county engineer's signature stamped and official. That ramp had stood safe and solid for 12 years with 0 complaints. Claudia. She just wanted to erase all that with a smirk and a concrete blockade. So I called her. Claudia, I said, keeping my voice level, we need to talk about the concrete blocks you put across my lake access. She didn't miss a beat. Said it was a board decision under new covenants that all structures now needed board approval, that my ramp was suddenly unauthorized, never mind the permit, never mind it'd been there longer than any of her rules. And if I didn't comply, $500 a month in fines, until I removed my ramp or bent the knee and begged for their blessing. That's HOA logic for you. But when I asked who authorized dropping literal barriers on my easement, she switched gears, said it was all common property, like I didn't know my own deed. She hung up before I could answer, and just like that, I became the enemy in my own neighborhood. What Claudia didn't understand about people like me: we don't fight loud, we fight smart, we document. I'd already been building my case since spring, collecting every rumor, every board memo, every email. I had a binder labeled County Permits 2023 Renewal with an active ongoing correspondence about an upgraded permit that, once stamped, would put county authority behind me and outgun any HOA paperwork anywhere. That's what I did. Built a folder, organized every scrap of evidence, photos, emails, dates, legal codes. It wasn't rage, it was methodical. Facts, not feelings. That's how you win a real fight. Monday, the official notice arrived, a thick envelope with a letterhead that made my stomach drop. Violation notice, assessment of fines, threats of legal action. All in legalese, all written just scary enough that most people would crumble. But nowhere did they call my ramp illegal. They just pretended county permits didn't exist, focused on internal rules like those trumped the law. It was slick, I'll give them that. By Tuesday, Claudia's campaign hit social media. No names, just a resident violating community standards, risking environmental harm, tanking property values. She even angled a photo to make my ramp look like the Hoover Dam. I watched my neighbors pile on, parroting her lines, some calling my ramp an eyesore, others saying people like me don't deserve to live here. Folks I'd smiled at for years now averted their eyes at the grocery store, and a Marine who'd once told me stories about his time in Afghanistan wouldn't even nod hello. That's how powerful the good narrative is until you hit it with the truth. Friday came a final warning email from Claudia. Threats of court, tens of thousands in legal fees, public shaming, all the costs dumped on me, the villain. But what she'd missed in her cut-and-paste threat was the fine print in her own rules. My ramp wasn't even visible from the street, just from my own property or the water. And of course, none of this changed the county's authority. I drafted a cool, neutral reply, told her I'd be reviewing all relevant documents within the 30 days allowed by law. No panic, no emotion, just facts. That night, I opened my blue binder, the one Claudia never dreamed existed, where I'd kept every message with Grace Thornton, the deputy county engineer. My application for a superior riparian access permit was approved, set to last 20 years, and here's the kicker: explicitly superseded all HOA covenants. I hadn't scheduled the final inspection yet, hoping the HOA would resolve things quietly. Now I knew better. So I went deep, 3 hours in the county law library, hunting statutes and case law. You know what I found? The county engineer has jurisdiction over all structures on public waterways. Private riparian access is protected if it meets county standards. And this was the knockout: no HOA can enforce rules that contradict a county permit. I printed it all out, highlighted and tabbed, then dug up 2 court cases where judges hammered HOAs for pulling stunts just like this. One HOA had to pay $15,000 in damages. The other got ordered to rewrite their rules and resign. I smiled reading that. By Tuesday morning, the plan was locked, scheduled, the inspection gather, ironclad evidence, send the HOA a formal demand. Then if they refused, let the county enforce the law and stack up penalties. I texted Grace and her inspector Boyd to set the wheels in motion. The inspection day was cold, bright October steel. Grace and Boyd showed up all business. Laser levels, cameras, tape measures. They didn't care about community drama, just facts, measurements, documents, GPS. When Boyd finished, he said it plain: "These blocks are 2.3 feet inside your private easement. Mr. Blackwell, not even close to common property." Grace filled out the paperwork, issued my new permit, and told me the HOA was already up to nearly $7,000 in fines for illegal obstruction. I'd never felt so vindicated. County authority isn't a suggestion. I assembled everything: permits, inspection reports, statutes, case law, every email and screenshot, and delivered it, certified mail, to Claudia. 2 hours after she signed, she called, voice tight as piano wire. Tried to negotiate. Tried to blame me for making it public. Claimed I was threatening the whole community over a kayak. I just told her, facts don't negotiate, Claudia. County has jurisdiction. My permit supersedes your covenants. She went from professional to angry to desperate in under 2 minutes. I made sure to invite the whole community to the next inspection. Grace Boyd, a sheriff's deputy, and half the neighborhood turned out. Claudia showed up with the board bluffing about common property. Boyd called out the GPS. Grace issued a cease and desist order right there, 72 hours to remove the blocks or face escalating penalties and county contractors hauling them away. Suddenly, the narrative had changed. The Marine down the street even spoke up, asked why the board hadn't checked for county permits first. Silence. Friday, a contractor came and loaded up those blocks one by one. Neighbors watching, some filming, some apologizing. The ramp was open again. My peace returned, slow but steady. That night, the community center was packed, mandatory meeting. People grilled Claudia and the board about the wasted money, the mounting fines, the embarrassing defeat. The votes came down hard. Claudia ousted 2 more board members, gone. Lorraine, the neighbor who once wouldn't meet my eyes, was elected interim president, and her first act was to push for legal review of all HOA enforcement, make sure nothing like this ever happened again. The new amendments recognize county and state authority, set up real appeals, and force the board to get legal advice before threatening anyone. The message was clear: in this community, power only means something if it's legal, if it's real. The days of unchecked HOA overreach were done. The next morning, Lorraine showed up with a pie apology and gratitude all rolled in one. We sat on my porch watching the lake, talking about how easy it is to trust authority until you realize they never checked their homework. Documentation beats rhetoric, I told her. Facts matter more than popularity. And for once, it felt like the whole neighborhood believed it. When I finally took my kayak out again 43 days since I'd last launched, I felt a peace that wasn't just about winning. It was about surviving with my dignity, my rights, and maybe even a little more trust in the system than I'd had before. Here's the thing, and I hope you really let this sink in: dignity isn't never getting hurt. It's how you respond when you are patience, research, and cold, hard facts. They win over noise, spin, and threats every single time. So would you have the patience to fight like that? Or would you fold just because the crowd turns their back? In the end, justice doesn't always look like a movie ending. It's quieter, slower, but a whole lot more satisfying. Sometimes it's just a librarian with a binder, a county inspector with a camera, and the truth standing tall when all the noise has faded. So tell me, where do you stand on the line between rules and real authority? Drop a comment, share your own war stories with power or HOAs, or just tell me, when's the last time you double-checked what someone in charge told you? Because facts, friends, they don't negotiate. And justice, sometimes it comes on a county letterhead stamped and sealed. No applause needed.